Zara Tindall, a royal without a royal title.
It's fair to say that Zara is a great credit to the royal family.
She's added a certain amount of celebrity and a great deal of glamour.
Fun-loving, colourful, upbeat. Zara is one royal unconstrained by old-fashioned protocols.
A member of the royal family gets a tongue ring?
She certainly did do things that sparked controversy.
We reveal what's really made Zara the progressive royal she's become. And ask, how has her mother, Princess Anne, influenced her life?
Zara has really looked to her mum as a way to live her own life.
There is no pretense. There's nothing superficial about either of them.
It is a unique and very close and very strong relationship.
From sporting achievements.
Anne was the very first member of the royal family to compete in the Olympics. Zara was the very first member of the royal family to get a medal in the Olympics.
To their modern-day love lives.
I think Zara is very much like her mother in that she is a free spirit. She's had some quite colourful boyfriends in the past.
This is the story of how these two women have defied and defined our royal family. The 15th of May, 1981.
Princess Anne has a baby girl. Both are well.
Zara's delivery was positive and quite urgent. I think she went into labour quite quickly with Zara.
Good evening. Princess Anne tonight gave birth to a baby girl, a sister for Peter, who's now 3. And she's the Queen's first granddaughter. It's not yet known what the new baby will be called, but whatever her name, she'll be 6th in line to the throne.
From the very outset, the Queen's first granddaughter was marked out for an untraditional royal life. Firstly, in her name.
Zara is quite untraditional. It's an unusual choice for a royal name.
Zara lives up to her name, which means bright as the dawn, and I think it was a very imaginative suggestion that came from Anne's favourite brother, Prince Charles.
I suppose the very naming of Zara with such an unusual and in many ways unroyal name perhaps set the precedence for a remarkably unroyal life, which is what Zara's enjoyed when you look at it.
Anne decided very early on that her children would not be public figures in the way that she was.
The key to understanding everything that follows comes back to this. The decision by Princess Anne that her children would not inherit royal titles. No HRH for Peter and Zara.
It's called dash. Dash. And you know the word you use when you're cross. Dash. It comes out frightfully well as a dog's name.
Zara was the first royal granddaughter in 500 years to be born without a title.
According to the 1917 letters patent, her children weren't eligible for a title because they're in the female line.
So a monarch's daughter is a princess, but a monarch's granddaughter through the female line is not a princess.
This could have been resolved if Zara's father had been given a title, but it seems Anne wasn't keen.
When she was marrying Captain Mark Phillips, it was thought highly likely that the Queen would offer him an earldom.
Looking ahead, have you been offered a peerage?
No.
Could you accept one if you were offered one?
That's a hypothetical question. I don't talk about it. Sorry.
It was Anne and at the time her husband, Captain Mark Phillips' decision not to take those titles.
This was no small decision. Unlike her cousins, Beatrice and Eugenie, Zara would not be a princess. No curtsying, no honours, but crucially, much more freedom.
The decisions meant that the children were going to be relieved of any kind of royal responsibility.
Much more of Anne's life as a child was public than Zara's life as a child. Anne was very conscious that she wanted her kids to have a slightly more sheltered upbringing than she'd had.
And if you speak to either Zara or Peter, they will also tell you that not having the burden of titles has enabled them to live ordinary lives.
And although her background was privileged, living a lovely estate in the country, it's not as super privileged as living in palaces.
Anne's next big decision gave Zara a life and freedom the Princess Royal could only have dreamt of for herself. While Anne's early schooling took place privately at Buckingham Palace, she was determined to ensure that Zara's early education was much more down to earth.
It was a decision jointly made by Anne and Mark that they would send their children, first of all, to the local village primary school at Minchinhampton.
Anne's choice of secondary school for Zara was also a surprise. Zara would be sent to Gordonston, a tough, demanding boarding school in Scotland, famed for its cross-country runs and cold showers, not a school associated with young princesses.
The Gordonston choice is quite an interesting one, but I think that's probably because Princess Anne detected in both her children that they were very outgoing and sort of outward-bound sporting characters.
A far cry from Anne's own experience. At 13, she was sent to Benenden, a genteel and very posh boarding school for girls. These two decisions, no title and Gordonston, set Zara on her path. Sporty, resilient and happy.
Gordonston is not for everybody.
Prince Charles, of course, is famous for saying that he loathed his time in this Scottish boarding school.
I don't think it's a school where a very sensitive and creative person should go. But, you know, the best will in the world, Peter and Zara, are not creative in that particular way. They're much more sporting types, and so they, I think, did prosper and rather enjoyed it up there.
Zara and Peter actually had very positive, very happy experiences there.
Princess Anne couldn't attend Gordonston. The school only began offering places to girls in 1972. But Anne was adamant that Zara would go to the school she may have longed to join, knowing it played to all Zara's strengths.
They concentrated very much on the open-air life. There was a lot of sporting activity.
Zara's potential as a world-class sportswoman was not only recognised but developed. They really allowed her to flourish. She loved boarding, she did well at her A-levels.
Post-school, Princess Anne was thrust into life as a working royal, but she had other ideas for her own children. She could see Zara's potential, and she wanted to push her to reach her goals that she couldn't because of royal protocol.
Zara has certainly had more latitude than her mother.
She's able to be just that little bit more relaxed.
Like mother, like daughter, Zara was showing signs of excelling on the junior equestrian circuit.
Not having that HRH title, not being a full-time working member of the firm, means that she's had a lot more freedom and a lot more opportunity than her mother ever did.
Among all the qualities that Zara and Anne have in common, uppermost is their enduring love of horses.
It's impossible to overestimate the importance that horses have been in the princess's life.
The British royal family have to be the horseiest family in the country. It's almost like they're pre-programmed to come out loving horses as part of their genetic makeup.
Zara, as with every child born into the royal family, would probably have sat on a horse for the first time before she can remember now.
In that family, you learn to walk and then you learn to ride.
You start on a Shetland pony and then you move on to a slightly bigger pony that's probably quite badly behaved and stomps on your toes occasionally. Pony Club puts a huge emphasis on horsemanship. So it's not just can you ride well, it's can you look after your pony? Can you do the dirty jobs?
They'll be on the road every week, through the season. And it's quite simply a lot easier to get up and drive your horses to the events, ride them, finish and come home.
For both Anne and Zara, these routines became second nature as horses developed into a professional passion and cemented their relationship with each other.
I think for Anne and Zara, horses represent their freedom.
Influenced by her mother's career, Zara would follow in Anne's footsteps.
Eventing comprises of 3 disciplines: the dressage, the cross-country and the show jumping.
It's easy to forget because equestrianism doesn't seem so big now. We don't see it on the telly all that much. But Anne was one of the leading and most famous sportswomen of her era.
Even if she hadn't been a member of the royal family, it would have been an incredibly impressive trajectory. She became the European champion in 1971 and she was only 21 years old. which is still an age that's eligible for young rider classes. So in the grand scheme of things, incredibly young in this sport.
And two very familiar faces were on hand to present the princess with her gold medal.
In the clip of that moment, Prince Philip in particular is absolutely beaming. Clearly so incredibly proud.
Those are occasions when the Queen is present, of course, but I'm sure she would think she's present as a mother.
It was a very special moment that the Queen was able to give the prize to her daughter, and it wasn't a special favour prize, her daughter had earned that prize.
But Princess Anne's European triumph was followed by a frustrating run of bad luck. Her horse suffered a tendon injury, ruling her out of the Munich Olympics, and there was more frustration the following year.
In 1973, when she was the defending European champion, she fell off at the second fence at the Kiev European Championships. Then you have the press, of course, speculating, well, was she just a flash in the pan when she became European champion?
That pressure was brought to bear at the next European Championships in 1975.
After doing a very good dressage test, the media speculated that Captain Mark Phillips had doped her horse before the test because they'd seen him give the horse a sugar lump. When the horse was drug tested, it was all clear, but she'd had to go through the whole competition knowing that everyone was watching her and thinking, are you cheating?
Cinder received her gold medal.
She finished in second place at the European Championships and took home the silver medal. She looks at that as being more of a significant accomplishment because at that point she'd had just about everything that can go wrong, and she'd learned to deal with it.
In 1976, Anne became the first member of the royal family to represent Britain in Olympic Games.
Riding Goodwill in the Montreal Olympics of 1976. And she said, it's a unique example in equestrian history where the Queen had bred not only the horse, but also the rider.
With a European champion mother and an Olympic champion father, it was no surprise when Zara began to forge a fine equestrian career of her own. Zara, unlike her mother, had no conflicting royal responsibilities, so she was able to throw herself completely into her riding career, and Anne was on hand to support her daughter, underlining their unique relationship.
It was my decision if I wanted to ride, and they would push me, so, but when I did, they very much backed me up, and, you know, they're both very knowledgeable, unfortunately.
So they give you lots of advice?
Yeah. And criticism.
Zara may not have been pushed into equestrianism, but it was obvious that if she inherited her mother's ability without the constraints of royalty, she could potentially go much further in the sport.
It was in the late 90s, in her teens, when she finished second in the Pony Club Championships, that the equestrian media and then the regular media really started to sit up and take notice.
Zara won silver at the European Young Rider Championships in Austria in 2002 and made her senior breakthrough at the Burghley Horse Trials the following year, where Pippa Funnell won the illustrious eventing Grand Slam.
She'd already won badminton in Kentucky, and everyone was watching to see if she could get the third one and the biggest prize of all. And Zara was very nearly the rider to stop her from doing this.
A mistake in the show jumping cost her dear, but for 22-year-old Zara, making runner-up at Burghley was a big step forward.
To finish second in such a high-profile year, that was really the moment where people realised that she was a serious contender.
Unfortunately for Zara, an injury to her horse ruled her out of the 2004 Olympic team. 32 years after her mother had suffered the same fate.
Getting it right for the Olympics, you being fit and your horse is very often, you know, a game that can go wrong.
It's not just me who's had that problem before, you know. I think everyone on the team has had a problem in the past.
There are a lot of things that can go wrong with horses and a lot of very minor injuries that can put a horse out of contention for major competitions.
But Zara quickly put her Olympic disappointment behind her.
After that, she started racking up the titles. In 2005, she went to the European Championships and became European champion.
Yeah, she was a phenomenal, talented young rider, and her horse was very impressive. And together they just made this, you know, amazing pair.
Zara had the chance to go one better the following year at the World Championships in Germany, but she arrived in Aachen in a state of shock.
just before Zara went to Aachen for the World Championships, one of her best friends, Sherelle Duke, had what should have been a very innocuous fall at a one-day event. She fell and then the horse rotated over and landed on top of her, causing grievous injuries that she unfortunately didn't survive. That was one of her best friends, a girl that she'd gone on holidays with in the off-season. They were very close. She actually wasn't able to attend Sherelle's funeral. Her brother attended in her stead because the funeral was held while she was already in Germany.
Remarkably, Zara kept her focus and went into the final event in the lead.
Zara went into the arena with a German audience screaming so loudly that she lost her bearings for a moment, didn't realise that the clock had started and so lost seconds off her timed show jumping round. But as she crossed the finish line and looked at the clock, she realised that she'd scraped it, she'd managed the win, she was the world champion.
A world away from the eventing arena, Zara followed in her mother's footsteps to become the second royal family member to win BBC Sports Personality of the Year.
People just voted, you know, again and again and again and in their droves because, you know, it was really important that she won because it caused global interest in equestrianism.
And a lot of the phone-in votes seem to be coming from Buckingham Palace.
BBC Sports Personality on the telephone. That's nice to go. They've all been
voting
Yes, of course they
on your phone. Yeah, I think it probably made them realise that I wasn't just kind of playing around at it, and it was serious and it is hard work, and you know, hopefully they have seen that.
But Olympic success continued to elude Zara after her horse Toy Town was again injured before the 2008 Games in Beijing. Her Olympic debut would have to wait until London 2012, the Games which Princess Anne had been so instrumental in securing for the capital.
The London Olympics, which obviously was an enormous occasion for her to be a part of.
It's all getting much closer and everyone's getting more excited.
And Zara wasn't there just for the ride.
In Jubilee year, the Queen's granddaughter, Zara Phillips, and her teammates were handed their silver medals by her mother, Princess Anne.
Made it feel very, everything's worth it, and you know, we did a good job and we got an Olympic medal. You know, not many people could say that. Obviously it's amazing. It was amazing to get a medal anyway, so to get it from your mum was pretty cool.
Zara had her third child this year, so the postponed Olympics are off the radar. But future success is still very much on the cards.
The 2024 Olympics, which will be in Paris, would be probably on Zara's agenda and wouldn't be out of the question.
I'm sure her time will come again. She's just way too talented and too young, really, to think that she won't be back at the top.
While Anne and Zara bonded over life on the equestrian circuit, they had very different approaches to their love lives. Young and single, Zara entered adulthood, able to reap the benefits of freedom and the trust given to her by her mother. It was a stark contrast to Anne, who at her age was tied down by both royal duties and around-the-clock police protection.
I think Zara had a lot of fun in her youth. Certainly she loved to party.
Zara's brother Peter said she always liked being at the centre of anything fun and boisterous.
Yes, her parents really encouraged her to lead a full and happy and successful civilian life, but unfortunately things didn't always go so smoothly.
I think Zara is very much like her mother in that she is a free spirit, and she's had some quite colourful boyfriends in the past. I suppose her biggest romance was with a fellow jockey, Richard Johnson, and this was quite a tempestuous, quite a fiery relationship.
Just like her mother, Zara liked her men to love horses. In 1998, she fell for a 21-year-old National Hunt star. Not long later, Zara moved in with Richard Johnson, something that would have been unthinkable for her princess mother to have done with a boyfriend.
Zara had a reputation for being a bit of a royal rebel, doing things differently, not really caring what anyone thought about what she did.
Zara was one of the first younger members of the royal family to be able to live with a significant other without being married.
Despite the freedom that Zara enjoyed, she couldn't completely escape the press speculation about the state of her relationship.
You'd often see pictures of them out together, kissing, pictures that I suppose further fueled that reputation for Zara as being a bit of a wild royal.
Because they were both sort of celebrities in their own right in terms of the sporting world, they attracted an awful lot of attention.
He went to a public school, came from a family with a great deal of land, but a very volatile character.
And they also attracted attention because they tended to have very public spats, which is something as a member of the royal family you would avoid at all costs.
And in January 2001, a row spilled over into the street.
Royal rebel Zara Phillips is in trouble again after brawling with her boyfriend in public. Police were called to break up the fight between the Queen's granddaughter and her boyfriend, seen here on the right, jockey Richard Johnson.
Neighbours heard a huge ruckus, and it turned out that Richard and Zara were having a huge blow. Richard was said to have pulled Zara from the car and knocked her to the floor. It was later said to be an overreaction. That's, of course, how things are always described, and Zara and Richard stayed together. But, of course, that meant that Zara was tabloid fodder for quite some time.
Anne must have known from bitter experience that with freedom came responsibility. But perhaps she also recognised in Zara something of her younger self.
When Anne was younger, she had that reputation for being a bit of a wild child. It was a bit of the attitude that Zara has as well, a bit of can do and don't care.
Anne clearly understood just how intrusive the press could be when dealing with the private lives of the royal family.
Her love life generated a lot of interest, and I suppose further fueled that image of her being a bit of a wild child, which often got Princess Anne into hot water. I mean, her attitude to the press.
And in her younger days, Anne became known for her celebrated clashes with pushy journalists.
In the early days of Anne's emerging onto the public scene, of course, there was a great battle with the press. Actually, she seemed to enjoy the battle. I have to say she gave equally as good as she got.
Good news for us, Your Royal Highness.
So you have a vivid imagination.
And she also understood just how difficult relationships could be for royals in the spotlight.
Has it been a great strain keeping it secret and indeed keeping it away from people like ourselves?
I think it has, yes. It became rather a strain. Yeah.
It's funny with Anne, you wouldn't really look at her and consider her a romantic, but I think Anne probably is something of a romantic. She met her first husband in 1968. They met through the eventing equestrian circles, and they got married in 1973.
Do you think you would have married out of a sense of duty?
No way.
I'm glad you said that.
One very brave reporter asked her at the time if she thought her marriage would be able to survive the pressures of royal life, and she snapped back, well, it's got to, hasn't it?
Unfortunately, it didn't. The marriage was clouded by scandal. Zara was barely 18 months old as journalists dogged Anne on a charity visit for Save the Children in Africa.
At that time, there were all kinds of rumours circulating about her love life, what was happening with her marriage, was her marriage breaking down? There were so many rumours of infidelity. She was visiting a number of different countries. And the press tagged along because they just wanted the gossip. They wanted the juice, and they wanted to find out more about what was happening in Anne's private life.
After public revelations of Anne's infidelity and a love child fathered by Mark, they separated in 1989 and later divorced. Anne's first marriage had become an open nightmare. She would never make that mistake again, and she wouldn't let Zara go through it either. So perhaps it's no surprise that Zara soon changed her mind about living her love life in public. After 5 years of media publicity, in 2003 her on and off relationship with Richard Johnson finally came to an end. Enter England rugby player Mike Tindall, a grammar schoolboy from Wakefield, Yorkshire.
Zara met Mike Tindall when she was in Australia in the November of 2003 when England beat Australia in the World Cup. She met this hard-drinking, professional rugby-playing guy, and the chemistry between them was immediate.
So they did exchange their private telephone numbers, and when they got back, he telephoned and asked her would she go out with him. Amazing to do that with a member of the royal family when you think about it, even one without a title.
Mike and Zara's relationship unfolded very naturally, and they had a beautiful foundation as friends first, and I think that is what served them so well.
By April 2004, Mike and Zara were an item, and Zara introduced him to the family. There was no wealth, title, or a horse in sight.
Princess Anne is totally non-judgmental, but the fact that he had achieved, World Cup winning fame, in the rugby world, he was right up there in her way, because the princess loves rugby.
In contrast to Zara, her mother Anne found happiness in a much more traditional figure. Her husband, Timothy Lawrence, was a queree to the Queen. But with Zara, her normal life had allowed her to look further afield, and Mike was a welcome breath of fresh air.
If you think about the Queen and the sort of people that were at her table in 1952 when she first became Queen, well, now at Easter, she has people like Mike Tindall at the table, who's a very different character from, let's say, the late Duke of Beaufort, Master of the Horse, a great keen huntsman at badminton, etc. By introducing Mike Tindall into the family, she is sort of showing how times change.
Their relationship added a softer side into the somewhat stiff family dynamic.
You can't ever imagine Anne hugging and kissing anybody. Zara, on the other hand, is very tactile. She does like to hug and kiss her friends.
As a world-class athlete, Mike's work ethic was also just what Zara needed.
The one thing that the family really loved was that he encouraged her to start taking her sporting talent seriously. Of course, he was a big rugby player at the time, captain of the England rugby team, and here he was saying to Zara, well, you can go after this, you can do this, and that's exactly what she did. So I think the family will always be very grateful to Mike for encouraging her to pursue that ambition.
I guess in a way, Mike Tindall really tamed Zara's rebellious streak.
For all of Mike's reputation for being, hard living, hard playing, he actually was a pretty sobering influence on Zara.
They moved in together and 7 years passed without drama.
And it was interesting, when Zara and Mike got together, they were in the tabloids, hardly ever.
In 2011, in a year of wedding fever, the Queen's eldest granddaughter married at Canongate Kirk in Edinburgh. And in spite of the high-profile guest list, it flew remarkably low under the radar. How did Zara, the former rebel royal, manage to avoid a media circus for her royal wedding?
I think 2011 was particularly interesting in terms of comparing what it means to be in different positions within the royal family. On April 29th, we had that epic, full-scale royal wedding of William and Kate. Just a couple of months later, we get to July, and there are Zara and Mike Tindall going through their nuptials in a much smaller, much more low-key fashion.
The doors of the 17th century church were firmly closed to any cameras.
It looked very relaxed. People remember they seen Mike Tindall chewing gum. He was criticised for chewing gum in public. And he was just getting rid of his own bridegroom nerves, I imagine. Of course, we had the wedding of William and Kate at the same time, and all the focus was on them, as indeed it had to be. And Zara didn't mind that a bit.
I think that was a sort of prime example of the freedom that comes with being a non-titled member of the royal family.
They invited 400 wedding guests, modest compared to the party of Prince William, which numbered nearly 2,000.
Zara's wedding would have been something that she herself, obviously with Mike Tindall, they chose it, and didn't have to fit into any particular royal category, unlike Princess Anne, who obviously had one of the really full royal weddings to Mark Phillips, with carriage processions and Westminster Abbey and everything.
She didn't need the guest list of state dignitaries and other members of other royal families. She was able to have her and Mike's friends. It felt very much like a family wedding, but one with plenty of nods to tradition.
They were able to keep things really, really personal.
But back in 1973, a 23-year-old Princess Anne was forced to have a very different big day. That was anything but personal.
It was, of course, a state occasion, and everyone, the whole world and his wife were watching. 500 million were watching on TV.
As the only daughter of the Queen and her first child to marry as a princess, Anne had no choice but to give the public what they wanted.
I suspect that Princess Anne probably thought the whole wedding was, as it were, a necessary evil.
Would she have preferred a much smaller wedding? Yes, I think so. It's quite something to have to share that with the rest of the world.
So when Anne married for a second time to Timothy Lawrence in December 1992, it was attended by only 30 people.
The wedding was held at Crathy Church, which is near the Balmoral estate. It's where the royal family chooses to worship when they're in residence at Balmoral.
And, just like her daughter Zara's wedding, no cameras were allowed inside the church.
It was very quiet, but it was very peaceful. But the locals in Ballater, the local village just outside Balmoral Castle, all know the royal family. And it was a very, very, very pleasant wedding ceremony.
Anne is not remotely interested in a fuss. I think Anne's second wedding was much more in keeping with her personality.
Second time round, Anne got the wedding she wanted, perhaps paving the way for Zara to have hers. Did Anne's decision for Zara early on allow her to be her true self, free from expectations and royal constraints? Princess Anne was born into her royal role, but it was never something she wanted for her daughter. By handing Zara the freedom to be herself, she created a unique bond between mother and daughter, born out of trust and a determination not to be defined by title, even if that did raise some eyebrows.
She did have a bit of a reputation for being a wild royal.
Princess Anne's daughter, Zara, has joined Keith and the Prodigy and Spice Girl Mel B by getting her tongue pierced.
It made front page in nearly every newspaper in Britain.
Just behind the Queen Mother, Princess Anne's daughter, Zara, who's reported to have a stud in her tongue nowadays.
And everyone was like, a member of the royal family gets a tongue ring?
Today, I mean, it wouldn't be a byline. It wouldn't be a forethought or anything like that. Nothing whatsoever. It's extraordinary, really, but it was a very daring thing for her to do.
She said to one of the newspapers, oh, my parents would have been far more upset if I'd got a tattoo.
She made the decision to take a gap year. So she spent several months in New Zealand and Australia. For the most part, she was left on her own and to enjoy herself. But there were pictures of her out in nightclubs and bars in Sydney. Apparently she was bungee jumping in New Zealand. So I think she was doing what most kids do when they leave school, going off and having a bit of a wild time.
Anne, too, was considered rebellious in her younger days, but her actions now seem tame. In allowing Zara extra freedoms, was she giving her daughter a life she'd always wanted for herself?
Anne was very much labelled a free spirit, a bit of a wayward royal, certainly by the press.
People were stunned when footage emerged when Princess Anne was only 19 and she was filmed driving a 52-ton chieftain tank across rugged terrain.
With her recent visit to a North Sea gas rig, the first member of the fair sex ever to be allowed on board one, the princess must be getting used to setting precedents. She's obviously willing to try her hand at anything that comes her way.
And that didn't make her a royal rebel, but it certainly made her a woman who knew what she wanted to do in life.
Zara Phillips has shown the same level of determination in terms of she won't be told, no, I can't do something.
Some of Anne's early antics may have been daring, but she paved the way for her daughter to blaze a far more daring trail, especially for a royal. Shortly after returning from her travels in 2000, she was reported to have hosted an Anne Summers party at Gatcombe Park.
Perhaps not wanting to conform the way people might expect her to as a member of the royal family, but nonetheless having plenty of fun.
She was pushing the boundaries for a young member of the royal family in those days.
With more than 500 royal engagements a year in her diary, Anne's carrying out a role she was born to do.
Her vocation, her calling, her duty was always to be the Princess Royal.
It is a life of service. It's something which she has always accepted.
Princess Anne has inherited from her parents this profound sense of duty, absolute sense of duty, and indeed her dedication to public life overrides everything. Zara equally has, in a much quieter way, if you like, in a much less public way. She is just as devoted to the Queen.
While Anne liberated her from a life of full-time royal duty, there are still some occasions when Zara will put in an appearance.
Who exactly is a member of the royal family? And there are two ways of looking at that. There is a very clear-cut list of who the members of the royal family are. And those are the ones that appear in the court circular, where Zara is obviously a granddaughter of the Queen and very close to her, and a very close member of the family, and will appear at a great number of family occasions. She is not really technically a member of the royal family as such.
Appearances, on the balcony, trooping the colour.
Of course, there's the Christmas Day walk to church, there's the Easter walk to church.
You will occasionally see Zara doing the odd duty, like perhaps handing out a cup at Cheltenham.
She may not be an official royal, but Zara is clearly at the very heart of the younger Windsor family.
William and Harry, the closest cousins that Zara has got within the royal family, lost their mother at that comparatively early age, back in 1997. Zara seemed to grow even closer to them. Not long after Diana died, the Prince of Wales decided they should all go on a skiing holiday.
In January 1998, the world's press descended on Closters for a photo call.
Zara would try to trip them both up, and she'd throw snowballs, and they'd have a wrestle in the snow.
She was there to take the focus off them, take the pressure off. They used to hate those photo calls, but with Zara, everything is more fun because she's so gregarious. She's great to have around because of her positive energy and her zest for life.
She was a huge help, an enormous help to those two. And William in particular, I think, has always had a huge, huge affection for Zara.
William is quite serious by nature. He's actually quite shy. Zara is sort of the comedy cousin that you can turn to, where she takes the pressure off of everything. And so that friendship is so authentic. There are dozens of photos of William and Zara together over the years, laughing, joking. There's one time where Prince William was holding an umbrella over Zara. He was protecting her from the rain. I think he feels very protective towards her, and she feels equally protective of him.
And Zara has continued to support the family, especially William from the sidelines.
For William in particular, trust is everything. So when you've got a cousin who understands what it is to be a member of the royal family, but they don't have the same pressures associated to it, they can be a tower of strength and support.
In October 2013, William made Zara godparent to George, his first son and future king.
It's Zara's total loyalty and dedication to her family that has made her such an asset to the cousins that have had to endure the negative side of royal life.
Even as a new mother, Anne was required to travel the world as a princess and leave Zara and her brother behind with a nanny. Zara's comparatively normal life means her own children do not have to compete with royal duties.
I suppose Mia and Lena Tindall have really got that full-time hands-on parental experience that Zara and Peter weren't able to have, and Princess Anne certainly didn't have. Again, expectations change, generations change, but this is another one of the major pluses that comes with the freedom of being a non-titled member of the royal family.
I think she's been very modern in her approach to parenting.
Zara was encouraged and supported by a progressive mother, but she's chosen to take it one step further, opening up about her personal struggles with motherhood.
She shared the news of her miscarriage, which will have been devastating.
Charities have welcomed the Queen's granddaughter, Zara Tindall, who's revealed she had a second miscarriage before having her second daughter last month. She previously had a miscarriage in 2016. And in an interview with the Sunday Times, she said, "You need to go through a period where you don't talk about it because it's too raw." Speaking of the first miscarriage, she added, "For me, the worst bit was that we had to tell everyone knew."
Her honesty on an emotive subject like miscarriage showed a personal approach from the famously stoic family.
It's unusual for a royal to open up the way that she did. She did it because she felt that it was important. She wanted to talk about miscarriage, and I suppose in doing so try and break down some of the stigma around the subject.
She was able to really speak to a broad cross-section of society, and I think people really admired her bravery in that moment.
She will open up. She's opened up about quite personal and private matters in a way that, Anne would never do.
There were different expectations for Anne when she was both a mother and a representative of monarchy, but she still had a strong influence on Zara's parenting today.
Actually, she's probably looked not too far from how she was raised in terms of using that as a template.
Zara returned to the Gatcombe estate in Gloucestershire to bring up her children, where she grew up out of the spotlight. But it also brought her nearer to her mother and is a sign of the closeness of their relationship.
I think what's really lovely is that both Zara and Peter have stayed very close to home. They both live on the estate with their mother, and Princess Anne spends a lot of time with them.
Weekends are spent taking the children for pony rides and long walks around. Gatcombe actually has a running farm on it as well.
She's a good mother, and she's actually a very affectionate grandmother, which I think surprises quite a number of people.
Anne's affection for Zara, and now Zara's children, has always defined their relationship. It's a unique mother and daughter bond that has existed since she was born.
When Zara was born, I could see Princess Anne was absolutely besotted. And I was surprised. And she really was besotted with this dear little baby girl in this way. And I've always felt that she was so affectionate towards Zara, and the way they seem to react with each other, certainly in public, is not a mummy and daddy, mummy and child sort of thing. It really is more like sisters in that way. So it is a unique and very close and very strong relationship.
I've never heard that Princess Anne and Zara didn't get on well together. I think they've always had lots of mutual interest and great respect for each other.
Together, the combination of Anne and Zara has become a force to be reckoned with, breathing life into the firm for the years ahead.
They are both very determined, very ambitious women.
They both cut their own path in life.
Princess Anne was very much a trailblazer in many, many ways. She has a lot of firsts to her name.
And although Anne turned 70 last year, she continues to build on what she's achieved for her family.
We know that there's longevity in the royal family, and Anne shows no sign of slowing down.
Everybody who gets her are absolutely thrilled to have her because she's hugely supportive.
Zara has shown us how the royals have evolved and how being liberated from any official role can lead to the modern royal.
I think it's probably inevitable that in years to come, we are not going to see a royal family as we have today.
So I think it's important in the royal family, whether you have a title or not, that you have a constructive role.
Princess Anne and her influence led Zara to live a much freer life, and perhaps a life that Anne would have preferred for herself.
Zara is an absolutely perfect example of a non-working member of the royal family who gives back to the community, who is present for her family, and yet she's also proven herself on her own merits. She's worked really hard. She hasn't expected any kind of handouts.
She's added a certain amount of celebrity, of course, and a great deal of glamour.
But having lived a life without a title, she's also struck a balance between relatability and royalty.
Being a member of the royal family, having a private life, but also using her position for good. And it's not easy to achieve.
Anne broke the mould to give her daughter freedom to push the boundaries in every aspect of her life.
One thing that's always struck me about the similarity between mother and daughter, Anne and Zara, is their independence of spirit.
And together, mother and daughter have shown you can merge duty, lineage and ambition to do what you want.
I only wish if there could be a blueprint for future generations on how to find that balance and how to live a non-royal life in a royal world. Zara Tindall's it.
We should expect to see more royals like Zara in years to come.